Good morning and a warm welcome to our webinar, How to Simplify and Streamline Your Assessment Centres. My name's Lauren and I'm the Customer Success Director here at TopScore. I'm really pleased you could join us for the next 30 minutes. Today we're going to be diving into the world of TopScore as an example of how a digital assessment platform can streamline your assessment centres and its processes, which ultimately makes all of your lives a lot easier. I'm not alone on this journey today. I do have Jo Stone with me, who is our Business Development Director. Together we'll be your guides, providing an insightful tour to the TopScore platform, unravelling its capabilities and showcasing how it can redefine your assessment centre experience into the sustainable world. Just a few housekeeping bits before we crack on. A quick heads up, we want this to be more than just a presentation. So we're here for your questions and thoughts throughout the webinar. Use the Q&A feature, as I mentioned at the start, just to engage with us. Your input is completely invaluable. We're eager to hear from you. We're all ex-recruiters and ex-assessors here at TopScore, so we do know and have a bit of an idea about the pain points of running an assessment centre, but ultimately you're the experts. If you have any other specific pain points that aren't mentioned, please feel free to share those with us. Also remember that this session is being recorded and it will be shared, so if you do miss anything, don't worry, you can always catch up a little bit later. So, who are TopScore? We are a digital assessment platform. Since our inception in 2016, our mission has been to make assessment centres pain-free, paperless and accessible for all. We've already assisted over 100 organisations in streamlining their assessment processes across various industries. And while our roots lie primarily in the early careers sector, our impact extends out to lateral hiring and internal promotions and volume hiring. Before we crack on, you can probably see on the screen just now a few quotes from some clients that we've worked closely with over the last few years, which just highlights some of the work that we've been doing alongside them. Now, without further delay, I will hand over to Jo to talk us through the platform and talk all things that TopScore has to offer.
Brilliant, thanks Lauren. And so yeah, now I'm going to give you a quick look at some of the best ways that we help to simplify and streamline assessment centres for our clients. So again, as you can see on this slide, we have 3 different user types within the platform. So I'm going to be taking you through the platform, first of all, as an assessor, and then as a facilitator within the admin function, and then finishing off with the candidate view. So without further ado, I'm just going to move now into the actual platform itself and give you some insight into the assessor. Lauren, just a quick one. I can't add people in, so I think there's one waiting if you could. Brilliant, thank you very much.
Got it.
Okay, great. So look, the first view that we're going to go into here is as the assessor. The assessor would come into the platform, and I think the key thing to mention here and throughout the platform is ease of use. We want this to be as simple and as straightforward as possible for anyone taking part in an assessment. So they're going to come into here to a welcome brief. Again, the other word that I'm going to be speaking a lot about is customizable. So everything you see here will be customizable to your business. So this is just a bit of insight that we want that assessor to take on board before they take part in assessing the exercises ahead of them. So once I've looked at this, again, you can have video content. As an assessor, I'm going to go and click into my schedule. And again, we want this to be really easy to understand and to follow by. And you can see here that we've got a very straightforward timeline. So in this instance, I've got a couple of activities that I need to take part in today, followed by a wash up at the end. But I should technically at this moment in time be in an interview with Luke Skywalker between 11:30 and 12:30. So I better get in there and join that room. So once I join that room as an assessor, the key thing for me initially is going to be looking at the brief. I'm going to be wanting to understand what is going on. What do I need to know before taking part of that interview? How do I structure that interview? What are the key competencies that I'm looking to assess as part of that interview? We've got some tips here provided for that assessor, and also we've got a scoring model. That scoring model in this instance is 1 to 5, but again, customizable. It's going to be said a lot. Everything in here is customizable depending on the need of your business. And finally, there is also a document for me to read. I'm going to talk about this more in the candidate view, but again, all documents are available within the platform. So without further ado, I'm going to join the virtual meeting room. And just one thing to mention here, this is an inbuilt video and it's integrated into our platform. So this is for the virtual assessment. However, if this was to be in person, then the video would not appear up the top here. You just follow through and to make notes, etc. But in the instance of today, I do have a candidate who is very excited to take part in the exercise. Luke Skywalker's taken a bit of time out of his busy schedule as a Jedi, and he is waiting patiently to join the room. So I'm just going to turn my camera off, and every 1 second, it's going to refresh. So we go. So now I'm going to let Luke into the room. Good morning, Luke. And then what I'm going to then be doing initially while speaking to Luke is I'm going to be making notes. But, you know, that could be a bit difficult with this video being up here. So what we're able to do is pull this video over to the corner, and then I can then get down and focus solely on my notes as I take part in this exercise with Luke. So these are my initial notes. Luke seems really confident, you know, seems well prepared, has lots of relevant questions, and is very engaged. Now I want to get into the actual interview itself. And so I've got some interview questions that I'm going to be asking along the way, and making my notes as I go along with that. And the idea is I'm getting from top to bottom, focusing on the different competencies, and making my notes as I go along. Once that interview is then finished, I'm going to then say goodbye to Luke. Thank you very much, Luke, for your time. And I'm going to then leave the room. And then I'm going to then go through and start to add my scoring. Now, one thing that's really key here is that when I'm adding my scoring, and I just wanted to show you down here as I add my scoring, is that we have automated feedback. So let's say that Luke's done really well here, and we say he's scored a 4, a 5, and a 4. And I hope you could just see down there that there was some automated feedback that was provided. And this is going to provide that consistency that you need, and also help for efficiency for the assessor. But I also might want to then add my personal information. So I might decide, you know, Luke was very engaged and a pleasure to meet. And so the point I'm making here is that you can have the automated and personalized feedback all in one place. And again, I would then go through, add all of my information for the different competencies, and then I'd reach my summary, and we can then see that he's done pretty well overall, but maybe there's some concerns about problem solving. I can then have my final comments about Luke, and then in a very simple, straightforward way, you know, in comparison to doing this on a manual basis, you've got all of that information from that one exercise in one place.
Yeah, I think having run assessment centres, I completely understand the struggle it can be getting assessors on board with new methods of assessing, which is why our focus here is to make sure that the assessor journey is simple, it's streamlined. Everything is in one place, questions, scoring, note-taking facilities, video, all on one page. That inbuilt video, meaning that we don't have to go over to Teams, there's no more SharePoint, there's no more emails flying back and forth and Excel SharePoint documents being used. It just allows that really straightforward process to be used for all your information to be in one place and one secure environment.
Brilliant, thanks for that, Lauren. Now we're going to move on to the next part of the platform, and this is going to be within the admin view. This is my personal favourite part of the platform, and again, I believe that it deals with the biggest pain point, and that is about collecting and observing data from your assessment centres. So it's hard enough running an assessment centre, but then once you've got all that information, what do you do with it, and how do you collate it, and how do you talk about it and work with it? Well, TopScore was put together to make that really easy for you. And again, what we can see here is a breakdown with lots of different bits of information that are going to make, you know, assessing and deciding on who's the right person to offer a job that little bit better. So in this instance here, we've got a breakdown. I've chosen the program. Again, you could have multiple programs that you're looking to assess. In this instance, we're going with the graduate program. I then can choose the date in which I'm assessing. So we're going for today's date, but I just want to give context. If I wanted to, I could look over a week, I could look over a month, I could look over a year or a couple of years. As much data is in the system as is available for you to then track and monitor throughout. And then what I'm then going to start to do is to delve into a little bit deeper. So again, I can start to break down how many candidates were assessed, how many exercises, how many assessors, and how many of those were completed. And then we can start to look at some really good, interesting information about the averages. So we might look at the interview, for example, and decide that the scoring consistently is very high, and therefore we might want to add some trickier questions into that interview, as we're consistently seeing everyone score the same above average. Similarly, you might find that the group exercise is actually scoring quite lowly, and therefore quite maybe too difficult, and you decide to make it a little bit easier. Again, having this information available for you in real time and at the touch of a button is going to be a real game changer. So again, I've only got a short space of time to show you today, but I'm just going to give you a brief view of some of these dashboards. But here's I suppose the traditional sense, right? We're taking part in some exercises, and we want to see of those candidates who's performed the best. So in this case, we've got Harry Potter, who's potentially used some magic to, receive some of the highest scores. He's most likely to receive an offer because he's scored consistently across those 4 exercises, whereas Peppa Pig down here isn't looking so good and could quite likely not receive an offer today after their assessment. Okay, that's all well and good to have, but what if we want to dig in a little bit deeper and then look into things like competency? So it could be that, some of the competencies are, more important than others. So we might be more focused on customer focus, say, within the written exercise, whereas problem solving and presentation could be the main thing we're looking at. And then finally, we could just look at competency, and we're seeing more and more of this. And again, the feedback we get from people that are running assessment centres without tools like a tool like this is that this can be really hard to pull this information out, and can be very time consuming. So what we're trying to do, I suppose the main thing of this is save you an awful lot of time and admin, and also provide a good experience to the facilitator as well as the assessor and candidate. So again, in here, I might decide that, right, Harry Potter's done well, but my main focus is on teamwork and customer focus. Has he done well in those 2 areas? Yes, he has. He's definitely going to receive an offer from us today. One other thing to touch on here is just below, and that is keeping track of everything. So yes, when an activity has been recorded, we are able to track that in here. So again, they can be very chaotic, assessment centres, especially in-person ones. So being able to track that everyone's, following the path at the right time can be really handy. And you might see that someone's fallen off and you can just quickly give them a nudge to check and support where needed. Again, it's just that really nice information to have as and when you want it. And then finally, we get to that watch up at the end, and one of the assessors isn't available. But we want the information that they have from that review that they did of their candidate. Well, with this part of the platform, you have every bit of information from every assessor and every bit of information that candidate's provided in one place. And it allows you to then make that final decision and talk through that candidate in a lot more depth before you decide on whether to make an offer or not. Another thing to mention before I move on is that we can also then send this in a candidate-friendly looking PDF to all candidates automatically after assessments or on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I think that this really is the game changer in the assessment centre facilitation. By creating this almost holy grail of assessment centre, you're giving yourself back the time to be able to focus on the more important parts of your role. This allows you to look at your data and make strategic decisions, not only about the recruitment, but beyond the recruitment and what you want your processes to look like in the future. I've been there. I know what it's like when you're spending hours in Excel doing VLOOKUPs and pivot tables to try and make head or tail of the scores, when really you need to be spending your time looking at adverse impact, for example, or having the ability to look at trends in the data by glance. By having the assessor scores coming in to that dashboard in real time, you're able to make those decisions. I've heard in the past about companies using suppliers to analyse their assessment data to find these trends, but we have that readily available on the dashboard. It just gives you the upper hand and the edge when you're about to make those big decisions on the day, but also beyond with what your recruitment's going to look like in the future.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Lauren. And you know what, there's one thing I did really want to touch on that I missed that I think is really important here, and this is about our assessor averages. And again, so it's all well and good looking at how our candidates perform, but when our assessors are performing, we want to see consistently how they perform and to see what impact they're having on our candidates. So it might be in the case of Adam here, we can see that Adam consistently gives quite high scores and might need some additional support. Whereas with Dan here, for example, could be deemed a negative Nigel and is providing quite lower scores, and so therefore we want to help him in that instance. But anyway, moving on, I want to then go to the schedule. And this is another point where we know that it can be really time consuming creating a schedule and putting it all together. So we've made this really simple for you, and I just want to show you how simple that is while we're in here today. So again, before you come on board with us, you would work with Lauren and the customer success team to really, I suppose, really home in and make sure everything's ready and set up before the assessment goes live. And that would be with potentially a variety of different schedules. So in here, I'm just going to show an example of a pretty traditional looking one. And we can see here's a traditional looking day with some traditional looking exercises. But the big problem that we have here is that we don't have any candidates associated or any assessors. So again, this could be without a tool like this, something that could take you, quite a bit of time to get ready and can be quite frustrating because of people cancelling, etc. So in this instance, I just want to show how quick it is for me to then upload candidates and assessors into this and have it ready to go for tomorrow. So let's go back to generating a schedule. I'm going to click my campaign. I'm going to go for my test schedule, and then so I've got I need 10 candidates. I've got my 10 candidates uploaded, and just one thing to clarify, it's very easy to upload your candidates into the system. All we need is a name and an email address. We upload via CSV. It takes a matter of seconds. So again, I've got my 10 candidates allocated to C1 to C10. I can move these around if needed, and I can then also move my assessors. So again, A1 to A10, and move them around if needed. And then I'm going to choose the date for that assessment. So let's say tomorrow is the day of the assessment. And then there we go. At the touch of the button, I've just created a fully ready to go schedule with everyone associated with the relevant times and exercises. But as we all know, things don't always go to plan. So in this instance, we might find out that a few of our candidates need a bit of extra time, which is no problem at all. But we also might find out other things. So it might be that on the day of that exercise or that day of that assessment, one of the candidates is no longer available to make it, and we have a backup candidate. So at the touch of the button here, we can swap that candidate for another, and that will automatically update any activity that that candidate is due to take part in. Similarly, we might have an assessor who calls in sick, and we've got someone waiting in the wings to help support and take over from them. Again, by the touch of the button, we can swap that for you. But yeah, again, anything that we do in here is done within real time. So these updates will happen immediately within the system. We get these situations sometimes where 2 minutes before an exercise, a quick change is needed, and you can do it there and then, no worries, no stress. And I suppose that's the real emphasis of this, is that it's very easy to use and the real-time element's really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's easy to forget, isn't it, when you're out of the assessment centre period. So right now it might seem really I suppose key, and you know that stress, that feeling, you just don't have time to think twice about something. You've just spent the last 4 months planning an assessment day. You've got it scheduled within an inch of its life. You've checked it again, and checked it once more just for fun, and then before you're about to kick off, 20 minutes prior, you get the email that pops up that says, "So sorry, emergency here, can't make it," from one of your lead assessors, and the panic just sets in. You start thinking, "Oh my God, I'm going to have to start making new packs and new name tags, and more importantly, I've got to redo the whole schedule." So we wanted to take away that stress element by creating something that works in live time. By using our scheduler, you're able to just, like Joe showed you, just a few clicks to be able to make that really simple process. There's no wait 24 hours for a ticket to be issued by IT, or you have to give it an hour for it to show in the assessor and the candidate's schedule. It's live. You make those changes, they're happening even when somebody's actually in that exercise. If it's running behind, you want to extend the time, it's totally possible. The other point to add, which obviously Joe touched upon slightly, was the customer success team at TopScore is what we, I suppose, really pride ourselves on, to be able to provide a service. We are all ex-recruiters and ex-assessors, so we get it. We know what it's like. We've been there, done that. We know the stress that you're feeling. But also, from the minute that you, sign contracts all the way through to your last assessment day, you've got someone with you that knows the platform inside out and has used it. Like myself, I was an assessor and I wasn't a facilitator that's used the platform in live assessment days, and now works on the other side. But we're with you every step of the way. So you send your schedules to us, we can get them onto the platform for you. You want to make changes to them, it's so easy that you can do that. It's such a straightforward process, but you have that support throughout the whole of your journey with TopScore. It's not just a case of here's some training, off you go, best of luck, see you in 12 months time to talk contracts again. We're there to support you every step of the way.
Lovely, thanks, Lauren. And now moving on, we're going to move into the last part of the platform. And again, before I log in as a candidate, I just want to sort of talk to you a little bit about that introduction. And again, candidate experience is really key here. We want that candidate to log into what they deem to be your business and your branding. So again, we would have your company logo and your imagery here, so that it feels like they're logging into something to do with you as opposed to a third-party app. So again, in the instance of today, I'm logging in as Luke Skywalker. So we're going to be coming in from that different perspective now. And again, any login can be done also with SSO or MFA. But in this case, we're doing email and password. But anyway, Luke will log in, and again, we're looking at something that was very similar to that assessor view, and it's just giving that candidate that welcome. So again, this will be the information for them, what they need to do within the platform or what's expected of them within their exercises. Again, customizable is the word. Anything here you see can be changed to suit your needs depending on what you want. And again, we can have video content. So again, ease of use. Right, I'm going to come in here. We want this to be, again, the candidate experience. We want to be really straightforward. So we want them to come in and just do the best they can at their exercises. We don't want to make anything else any more complicated. And so again, there's that interview that I'm going to be taking part in. So I would then log into this interview. And as I log into this interview, we can see a brief, not as big as the assessor one, but a brief for me as a candidate. It's telling me that I should focus and use the STAR approach. And again, I'm able to join a virtual meeting room. Again, just to reiterate, if this was in person, then that would not be there. But one thing that's really key, and I didn't show you in the assessor view, but I can show you now, and this is really good to have, is this document viewer. So I'm going to go in here and view this document, which is part of my brief before my interview. Now, this document here, I can only view when in the room, and I'm not able to copy or paste this document. So a couple of key things to mention about the document and the room. One is with the room. What makes it slightly different from an assessor is that I can only log into the room from the allocated time. I then only have a certain amount of time after that room, but whereas an assessor can log into the room throughout the day, so they can go back to the room and then go and track and make their notes, a little bit later. It might be a few hours later because they're busy in between. But from a candidate perspective, we're trying to give everyone the same, I suppose, so everyone from the same starting point. And so someone isn't able to share this with a colleague and they're not able to put it into an AI bot. And again, what we hear is that, historically, it can be quite difficult to share these types of documents when not using a platform like ourselves. So I'm just going to now go back to the actual room itself. And we can see here, going back to the brief, I'm going to join the virtual meeting room. And then, as you saw earlier, I was waiting for Luke to enter. I will then knock and I'll have to wait for the assessor to let me in. I'm only going to be in the room once the assessor lets me in. And then I will take part in my interview. And again, for me, I'm not making notes as such. I'm just going to be speaking throughout, and the assessor will be making their notes on the other side. Final thing to mention for myself is around this accessibility toolbar. So again, I just want to touch on this over down here. But again, anything down here that you need audio support with, we're able to play any of the text. And this is because of this inbuilt accessibility toolbar that we've got up here. Again, there's other elements to it as well. So if a candidate has sight impairment or is colorblind, or if they're neurodiverse, there's different functionality to make the font larger, to change the color. Again, if there's support with dyslexia, etc., then there's other bits and pieces. But effectively, everything up here is there for the candidate to help support and provide, I suppose, equal opportunity to everyone that takes part within the assessment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, really conscious of the time, and I obviously don't want to reiterate everything that Joe's gone through, but the most important part for us was candidate experience. We just want it to be the most simple, streamlined process for them, because ultimately they can focus then on what is the most important aspect of being able to show their skills on the day. We want them to have an idea that they're walking into your platform. It's your URL, it's your branding, your login page, your colours, your imagery, everything about it will have your stamp on it, which really heightens that candidate experience. We want them to feel immersed in your brand. We want them to feel they have no concerns that they're going from platform to platform to platform. It's something that's been built by you for your candidates. That accessibility toolbar plays into that as well, because we understand that virtual and digital assessment centres have obviously opened doors for thousands of candidates that never before would have thought about taking part in assessment centres or applying to graduate roles. But there is a group of candidates that also may be quite concerned by the idea of being in a heavily text-based assessment. So we wanted to make sure that it is accessible for all by having this toolbar. It's available on all of our platforms for candidates and assessors. Nobody needs to let you know that they're using it, nor do they have to request permission to use it. It's something that is there as standard, so that we can really bridge those gaps between candidates that feel like they need that extra layer of support in order to be able to showcase their skills.
Brilliant, thanks for that, Lauren. And effectively there, because of time, that's where we're going to end our demonstration. Again, there's so much more to show, and if you did want to look at it more so, then we'd be happy to show it in more depth at a later date. But I think we're going to just see if we can get through a couple of questions before we run out of time?
Yeah, super quick fire questions. So we have had a question come in asking, can the platform be accessed via tablet?
That's a really easy to answer, and that is yes, it can do.
Fantastic. Okay, yes, so not just laptops, obviously always best practice, but the tablets are available as well. Can you run multiple assessment centres on one day?
Yes, we get this one quite a lot actually, but yes, we can. So I think I showed you briefly a graduate scheme, and there was a campaign drop down. You could have multiple campaigns on the same day, which would have multiple different schedules, etc. So yes, the answer is yes.
Fantastic. And if not that we perceive it, but if anyone's having any trouble with technology or the platform or anything like that, and have a couple of questions on the day, is there any live support available?
Yes, throughout. And again, we've actually got clients in Australia, and we have support throughout the night for those clients in Australia. So, you know, I can say I'm not part of the customer success team, but the customer success team with which Lauren runs is a very good team, and we get great feedback all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got hotlines and emails, and there's a chat function for internal support between yourselves, you know, admins to candidates, etc. But I'm really conscious of time, and obviously we said we'd wrap up by midday, and we have come to the end of our very quick snapshot of the TopScore platform. I hope you have found it useful. If you would be interested in a full demonstration of the platform and all of its functionalities, because there are hundreds that we've obviously not touched upon today, we do get in touch. We will be sending out the recording of this session, and with that we'll have all of our contact details, so feel free to just get in touch and we can schedule a slightly longer demo to give you an overview of everything that TopScore has to offer. So I hope it's been beneficial. Thank you so much for your time, and all that's left to say is I hope you have a good rest of the day.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great day.